And thank you for tuning in to the Above the Net SWAC Volleyball News Show. You're listening to your host, Tamika Newman, volleyball analyst, two-time SWAC graduate, once from Prairie View A&M, and then Texas Southern, your 2006 SWAC Volleyball Player of the Year. And to make a long story short, I am SWAC. This segment of Dr. Mike Prince's already popular show intends to highlight elite performances by teams and individuals, interview current and former players in order to give youth coaches, parents, and players an inside look into the SWAC volleyball program. So let's jump right into the show. Today I am chatting with one of my favorite volleyball minds, a coach who happened to take the SWAC by storm, and my PV Panthers. Shameless plug there. Welcome to the show, Coach Lindsay.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
Yes, Coach and I talked briefly that she's in the middle of a tournament, so we're so gracious that she wants to pop in and chat with us. So, Coach, first let's start with talk about your reflections from last season. I was at the tournament. I saw how it ended. Talk about your thoughts after the season, how you approached recruiting, and then take us into two-a-days.
Yeah, so after last season, we didn't really lose anybody. We lost some, obviously some people graduated and everything like that. But for the most part, we returned a good chunk of people. We recruited a couple of transfers and then also brought in one freshman. So all in all, it was just we had to do minimal as far as this year went with recruiting. So going into two-a-days, we didn't have to do as much skill set work or like systems work because everybody was back and they knew kind of what was expected. And so we could get straight into the volleyball part of it. They came back in shape. They came back in ready to go. So you just focus on the volleyball piece is what we've been doing so far.
You've got to think you all are at an advantage given that so many people returned and there's some things you just didn't have to go over. In this landscape of college athletics, with teams kind of emptying out their roster and building it up, and kids being so unfamiliar with their peers and their coaches, that's usually a struggle. So that's pointed in a positive direction that you guys have returned so many, and they're accustomed to the culture that you want and your staff.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely an advantage keeping these ladies here in the program, and especially with the transfer portal being what it is, people are just jumping in and out of programs, and I think it is a testament to how we've been doing things here that we kept everybody and that they just came in ready to go. So definitely an advantage, but I do still think it comes with its challenges because we did well last year, and they have to understand that people are going to be gunning for us. It's not, we don't have the element of surprise on our side anymore, and so coming in and just playing our game and being clean as a team, I think that's what's going to help us going forward.
It's a really great point and thing to keep in perspective. It's so fun when you're hunting and no one expects anything of you. And last year, you guys could just see that it was so fun kind of chasing behind people and no expectations. It's just really fun when you're in that phase. But the minute the expectations are there, you got to guide your student athletes through that. And it sounds like you guys are already starting to talk about that. I love that.
Yeah,
so
no, for sure.
Yes, get us to this lead up to this weekend. I know you guys played in a tournament last weekend. Talk about how that went.
Yeah, so week one, we kind of just went out. We were trying some things out. We had a couple people out, so it was we had to do some things. When you start off the season with 3 starters out, it can get a little sticky. But I do think that for the most part, the team banded together pretty well and did what they had to do. It didn't come up with any wins for us. But going into week 2, when we played a couple Power 5s in that crossover tournament with the Power 5 HBCU Classic that Penny put on, we were able to get a dub from Alabama State, played them in a non-conference game and played pretty high level. I was pretty excited with the way they played. But that whole weekend they played really well. Lost by 5 points to Arizona, and they were 5 errors on our point, not, 5 earned points. So those are things that we can clean up. Same thing with Alabama, kind of the same thing. So going into this weekend where today we played UCLA, played them pretty tough up until that last set. and then we'll play TCU tonight. So kind of just the same thing, controlling our side of the court up until, all the way to finish, especially once we get to 18 points. You got to play clean all that time. So kind of just focusing on the small things. I mean, it's easy to kind of be firing on all cylinders when you're winning, but right now I kind of want to see that character out of them when things aren't necessarily going our way all the time. So, and they're building, they're growing from it. So we'll see what they can come up with in this next game at 7.
Yes, absolutely. Going back to starting the season with 3 starters out, super unfortunate, but the earlier you have to deal with some adversity like that, the better. We know as coaches. Talk to me about you guys' preseason. Is very interesting, a good mix of, I love the Power 5 crossover in the tournament that you and Alabama State, you guys participated in. I saw some footage from that, very impressed by that. I think it's a wonderful thing. So happy you all are partnering on that. Talk about what you want your team, and you just alluded to it, to come out of the preseason with.
I want them to come out of the preseason with some gusto. Like, the reason I put them in these tournaments where we're going to be playing these Power 5 schools is because when you win a SWAC championship, you're going to play the number 1 seed straight out, right? So you have to get accustomed to that. You have to get accustomed to swinging high hands, swinging over blocks, controlling the ball, especially controlling these serve-receive balls, because they're coming over the net with some speed. I wager to say most of these teams are serving at about 43 miles per hour, and so being able to handle those balls is something that I want to see from them. The other thing that I want to see, go out there and play. In these situations, make those games fun. Love up that challenge of being able to play at a high level, because every single one of these athletes is capable of it, and I'm seeing flashes of it, but I need to see it from start to finish. So that's my goal right now in preparation for the SWAC. You know me, I want to win games outside of conference. I love, I'm ready for the SWAC. We're preparing for the SWAC, but I want to win games outside of conference, and I think we're putting them in the place to do that. They just have to finish on some of these games.
You hit the nail on the head there with winning out of conference. And that's just where the SWAC should be progressing to in all sports. That's an expectation. Those of us that have been around the SWAC for a little while or paying attention to the landscape of college athletes know that that's the direction we need to go in to gain that prominence and that that consideration for a certain group of athletes. We need the notoriety just for small pockets of the country that still don't know much about HBCUs. It's just a positive thing, us being able to compete and win against those non-conference teams. It's going to help with everything, especially recruiting. Talk about leadership. Anybody stuck out to you other than those girls that you already knew would be leaders for you?
I think that right now we're just trying to find our voices a little bit. They're learning a little bit more accountability and the importance of being able to hold each other accountable. They're used to hearing me and my voice, and I get sick of hearing me and my voice. So now I'm seeing more people kind of step up into those leadership roles. So kind of just sorting a couple things out and seeing where it comes from. But I think the biggest thing is that we have players really in every position, and every person has their own unique style of leading. And so now we're just kind of waiting to see, who's kind of going to step out and fill those roles.
Awesome. Yes, everybody has their own way of leading. I always tell them, no matter where you are in the pecking order on the team, lead from where you are. You can certainly lead from the middle of the pack. Mm-hmm. How do you, as a coach, empower your players to be leaders?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just creating space for them to be who they are. You know what I mean? I think that you have to inspire people to want to follow, which I think is the biggest thing. Are you playing well? Cool, but can you make other people around you better? Can you make everybody follow you through those tough times, and then, of course, capitalizing on the good times. But just continuing to let them kind of sort it out on their own. And I think that instead of putting people in roles that they're uncomfortable with or throwing people to the wolves, I think that it's important for them to kind of sort it out on their own, and then we can go from there.
Awesome. I love that, creating space. That's huge. Offensively, talk about what you guys look like offensively. Where do you see some strength for you? And then a little bit about defense.
Yeah, you know us. We're outside pin-heavy team, but we also, obviously with Janiyah back and, some other contributing middles, Kirsten Atkinson is back. We have everything that we need to be an offensive threat. Kind of toying with a 5'1", 6'2" type of situation. We have the manpower to run a 6'2". Once everybody's back and they're healthy, we can, play around with that a little bit more. Because, when you have 3 hitting options plus a back row every time, I mean, you can't really beat that. So, kind of working with that. But obviously, Kylie Owen. She's gonna do her thing. She's gonna hit from the front row, back row. We did add a transfer named Demaya Hill. She's serving as my L1 right now, and she's playing really well. She swings really high. I think her touch was about, I think it was 10-4. So she's swinging really high right now, and she's really showing up against some of these Power 5. They're having a tough time blocking her, just because she swings so high. So looking forward to seeing kind of what she's going to do. I know when we played against Alabama State, I think she had something like 15 kills or something like that from the back row to the front row. She's a tough person to block. So when you have 2 dominant outsides, that's a coach's dream, of course. And then once we get our middles going and more established into the offense, I think that we're going to see a lot more offensive production, especially on that right pin. So yeah, definitely still working the kinks out, but we're going to get it going.
Yes, absolutely, and we know that you will. We know it is a process. This is still very early on. You're gathering that feedback as a staff to know how to get these girls from point A to point B, which point B sort of ends, or point B is sort of the SWAC tournament. So let's shift a little, talk about the landscape of SWAC volleyball, who, and I know there's a ranking system that came out, those preseason seedings, but who you think is going to be really strong this year, and where you guys will match up with those teams that are going to be really strong this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to call it what it is. I mean, FAMU is going to be tough. They're always a really tough team, super scrappy. Alabama State, even though we beat them, they still played us really tough. They're one of those energy teams that's going to bring as much energy as they possibly can. I think Jackson brought everybody back, and they won. They played really well in that SWAC tournament, and so they're going to come back with that, with their chest full of air, ready to go. And so I think that those are going to be our biggest competition points. But I mean, at the end of the day, I just tell my team, we got to control what's happening on our side of the net. Anybody should be able to throw whatever they want to at us, but as long as we control our side of the net, I think that we'll be prepared for, whatever it gets thrown at us. But yeah, definitely love seeing the competition grow in the SWAC. I love seeing everybody kind of building their programs up and taking some of these non-conference games and, making people respect the SWAC, because we warrant that respect, and I think we prove it every year.
Have definitely proved it in the last couple of years, playing a really, really high-level brand of volleyball. Speaking of SWAC, I want to shift, and this is my final question. You were a new coach to the SWAC last year. This year, I want to say there's 3 or 4 new coaches. You'll probably be able to correct me there. Southern has a new coach. Alabama A&M, Jackson State, and then who am I missing? Is that it?
I think that's it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it, because everybody else is still there.
Okay. Well, part of our audience is coaches. Talk about, as a new coach to a program, tell me 3 things. I hate to put you on the spot. 3 things to consider or to do when you are coming, or you're brand new as a coach to a program. 3 things.
I think the first thing that I did when I came in, I just focused on my team. I blocked out all of the outside noise. I blocked out any expectations anyone was having, and I just focused solely on the team and the implementation of culture. I know a couple of our new head coaches, they were assistant coaches, so that's a completely different battle to kind of wage, from going from being the fun uncle and the fun aunt to being the bad guy sometimes, and sometimes that can get a little sticky, but I think as long as, staying true, the second thing I would say is staying true to your system and staying true to what works. Obviously not being rigid and being willing to be a little bit flexible in certain situations. But I would say that that's the other big thing. And then also the last thing I would say is it's okay to make mistakes. I think that a lot of us are put in situations where it's like the coach has to be perfect. Be okay with making mistakes and give yourself that grace to make the mistakes. Don't be afraid to apologize. Don't be afraid to admit that you did something wrong to your team. I think it goes a long way when you can apologize to your team and just get better every single day as a coach. I think we're all faced with that every day, and so just to continue to get better for your team and to grow as a coach, I think that's all you can really hope for, especially in that first year.
You guys heard it from Coach Lindsay herself, who we know she lives these things, especially looking at the results of the Prairie View volleyball team last season and the run that they went on. So I would take that advice if I was heading up a new program. Well, Coach, I want to thank you for coming on with us. Love chatting with you. I want to wish you good luck tonight and then safe travels back to campus.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And as always, thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am.